Welcome back to another episode of the Cheap Champ Podcast. I am your host, as always, Malcolm Hall, and I'm still here in New York getting it done. And today I have a special guest. We're going to talk about some real estate because real estate's a hot topic. You got a lot of people out there on YouTube teaching you real estate, and a lot of people are doing it wrong. They end up homeless and broke. But we have somebody here who knows all about that. Would you care to introduce yourself, sir?
How's it going, everyone? Edan Greenige. I'm a real estate broker in the New York area.
All right, Mr. Edan, thank you so much for coming on today.
Appreciate it.
We appreciate you coming through. So tell us, sir, how did you get into real estate? Because I know real estate is a big booming thing now. Everybody's in the real estate, but you do it seriously. You're a professional.
Correct. So I had a long background in banking and finance. I worked a lot on the lending end for over 16 years where I was doing the lending. I was helping the realtors invest. I was helping people get the financing they needed for the housing. And then I decided to be an owner on the other side where I'm actually providing the housing for people, providing the resources and providing the investment opportunities for them. So my journey to real estate kind of came from the other side of the lending, and it kind of transitioned over till I became an owner and broker of New Prospective Realty.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So the lending part, banking and finance, I know lending's a big part of it because, of course, I help people with financial literacy and I help people improve their credit budget and whatnot. But a lot of the times I was trying to get into home loans and understanding different type of home loans out there because there's a lot of different types. You got FHA, VA, conventional. Could you tell us some of the lending, because a lot of people they don't know about the lending. They don't know to get a $200,000 house, you don't need $200,000. You need to be able to put some money down.
Of course. So there's a lot of misconceptions about lending. A lot of people think you need to necessarily be rich or show just a ton of income in order to get a loan, but that's not necessarily the case. Banks work off of ratios. They look at a ratio called the DTI, which is the debt to income ratio. They look at how much debt you have compared to your income. If it sits below roughly about 40%, you have a good chance of getting a loan. When you talk about down payments, people also think that you have to have a ton of money, but there's so much different programs out there. They have programs such as FHA, which allows you to put down 3.5%. VA loans, if you're somebody qualified for that, military personnel, it could be 0%. Something more conventional, a lot of these loans, you could put as low as 5% down, and you could still walk away with a home purchase. So lending, usually you would want to sit down with a lending professional to get a clear idea of what you can afford, but it's a misconception that it's very hard to get a loan or very hard to purchase a home because a lot of times the banks are collateralizing the property to get the loan. So it makes it easier to actually purchase the loan if it's the right property.
Right. And like you said about lending, I don't think, it's necessarily the hard part. It's getting your finances in order. It's saving that down payment,
Correct.
Getting that debt to income ratio down because you have to pay off some credit cards. Student loans don't kill you, but car payments and definitely credit card debt. So when I look at a lot of people's credit reports, it's usually credit card debt and sometimes they have stuff in collections that they haven't paid off.
I'll kill it.
Yeah, I'll kill it. So before you even go get denied the loan, look, I can tell you right now, you got to get in shape to go get the loan. So that's one of the most important things that people do. But one of the things I wanted to bring you on today is talk about what's going on in real estate. Because I know that there's a lot of people out there. There's been a lot of assistance helping people pay rent.
Right.
Government has either, stopped evictions and put people paying rent on hold. Not saying you don't owe the rent, you just don't have to pay right now.
Sure.
What are they doing for people with mortgages? Not landlords, because there's a misconception. The landlord is the guy, he's the middleman between the person that owns the mortgage. So the landlord is not always the person that's coming, that's fixing everything. He doesn't own the mortgage.
Yeah, it's a really rough situation. Being on both sides where I work with people who are tenants and I work with actual landlords, you kind of get an idea and a perspective on both ends. Now, I'm sympathetic to what's going on with the pandemic. I know a lot of people are hurting right now. They're losing work. And some of them need assistance because they'll be out on the street. But at the same time, a lot of people are ignoring the landlords. A lot of them are elderly people. This is their only means of income. This is their retirement plan. Some of them are just ordinary people, just like me and you. You know, they put an investment in, they put a lot of time, effort, they're properly managing it, and they're getting nothing in return. So they're not getting the income from the rentals. They still have a mortgage that's just being pushed along further back. They still have property taxes they have to pay. And you know what? I don't know. It feels like they're having to hold the bag right now. It's a really disturbing situation. Personally, I think that something else has to be worked out. If you want to defer rent, you also have to find a way to compensate the landlords fairly, because now they're not getting any income. Now they're not able to pay that large lump sum of money they're going to have to pay later on when they're paying back their mortgage, and they're not going to be able to pay property tax. It's a raw deal for them right now.
Yeah, and that was my biggest thing, property tax. You still have to pay that on top of the mortgage. Renters don't have to pay property tax, and two, the landlord has to come still fix things.
Correct.
So if your tenant hasn't paid in the last 4 or 5 months, are you still obligated to come fix things by law?
You are definitely obligated to fix them, and the tenant can still call 311 or any other service to report you for that.
Right. But you can't report the tenant for not paying. And on top of rent's $1,000 a month, you had to come in and let's just take Texas, for example.
Sure.
Texas, snowstorm just came.
Yeah.
Busted the pipes. Your building's in shambles. Nobody's paying rent. What do? Who's going to help you out?
So you still have to fix it. You still have to fix that place. For heating, you still have to pay for whatever heating if the tenant's not paying for themselves. You still have to provide for those utilities, which you have to pay. So in general, a lot of times, just for example, in New York, apartment buildings, they have lighting in the building itself. They have other kind of utilities they're paying. That's not being provided for. So by pushing it off and just saying, hey, they don't have to pay the mortgage, they're okay, it doesn't really work like that. It's a very complicated process being a property manager. And it's a very expensive job sometimes too. I think right now what we're seeing is, I think it's politically right, or sounds good, in order to say, hey, we don't make them pay mortgage, we don't make you pay rent, everybody's happy. But there's so much more to it than that. I think that what you're going to end up seeing is, if you continue, is a collapse in the real estate market, especially on the multifamily units and the investment properties. This is going to completely collapse that market. They can't sustain that.
Right. I don't think they can either, because, the bank's not loaning any money right now. And, but the state, my problem is the government's not doing anything for these people. They're just telling the tenants, okay, don't pay. But so in Los Angeles, they have it to where, as a landlord, the state will pay 80% of the tenant's rent for them. Okay. But it's up to you as the landlord, to accept that. Now, I've talked to some people, they're saying like, well, my landlord should accept it. But you don't know what all he has to pay, because 80% of 100 is 20%, right? But now that's 4 people. That's 20%, 40%, 60, and it goes up. And now, okay, so what is this guy supposed to do at this point? And where does he get money? Because like I said, some of these people have regular jobs. I think there's a misconception that all landlords are rich, wealthy people, and that's not true.
They're not. A good rule of thumb is in New York here. When you look at any of these buildings or multifamily units, the rule of thumb is if you get up to 5% return on that property per year, that's a good investment. And you're only getting 5%. That's to pay for all the expenses, to pay for everything. So after you do the math on these properties, it doesn't leave that much of a spread for these landlords to say that they're rich. That's why a lot of people who are usually the bigger, richer kind of property owners own multiple properties. A person who just owns one singular property, after everything, they just have enough property to live as well. So for you to cut all that income out, possibly tell them that they have to get 80% pay cut, a 20% pay cut on what they're getting. Think about it like this. If you're working and somebody says, I'm going to cut your pay by 20%, could you really survive sometimes?
No.
A lot of us are just living paycheck to paycheck. We're just trying to get by. The same thing with the landlords. So if you're telling me now that I have to take a 20% pay cut and still pay for everything, still provide the same service and everything else I did, that's just a raw deal. Come on.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. And, like I said, it's going to collapse pretty soon, because what happens when the rent memorandum runs out? These people, credit's going to be shot and they can't get new, because now landlords are going to be so strict about giving new places. Like, I can't give you a place because before I went through this. So any landlord that's experienced anything through the pandemic, I think they're going to be very, very strict on who they give new places to.
They're definitely going to be strict. A lot of them are going to do evictions. You're going to see a lot of movement. And a lot of people, even though they're not paying rent now, they're not saving particularly to pay the rent in a lump sum later. So I think that you're going to see a lot of movement. The court's going to be very active with evictions. You're going to see properties getting sold because people can't afford it anymore. When those mortgages pile up and you owe that lump sum of money, they can't pay. So the first reaction is just, let me sell it, get rid of it, see what I can get out of it. Some people might fight. You might see some foreclosures. It's going to be a lot to sort out at the end. The government has an option if they really want to step in strong in order to make it right for everybody. But right now, you kind of see like a half knee-jerk reaction saying, hey, just don't pay rent. It'll work itself out. And I don't think that's the right reaction right now.
I don't think so either because, I was watching the video. The lady owed $6,000 in rent. And like you said, these people aren't saving any money to pay rent. How many people are going to pay rent with their $1,400?
I think what you see is you're going to see people get their $1,400 and they're so far behind in rent, they're going to say, what's the point of even paying it?
Right.
Why waste it on that?
Mm-hmm.
So, and
they haven't thought of a way of how people are going to start over. When these people get evicted, what's going to happen now? Because we already have in Los Angeles, we have a huge homelessness problem.
Of course.
And here, this is a major city too. And let's not also mention a lot of these jobs aren't coming back. So this job that you were paying rent with before is not coming back. And, if you don't have a new set of skills, what are you going to do?
That's $1 million question, I think. You're going to be walking into a situation where a lot of the times you're going to get this eviction. It's going to go on your credit report. There is a report of evictions. It's going to affect your next prospect for another property to either rent, own, whatever you want to call it. It's going to really screw you up for a long time. As you know, anything that goes in your credit takes a while to get off.
Yes.
I think that this is just going to all crumble down. And once again, as I stated, if something's not done with expediently and a more forceful kind of impact, I don't know where this is going to go. We're in uncharted territories right now, and real estate's bad all around. So we're talking a lot about the residential, but even commercial, you're seeing a lot of these things impact. Restaurants are closed. They can't pay the rent because they're not making any income. A lot of businesses are moving to more of a virtual presence. So they don't need all that rental space. So landlords are really feeling it from every angle. They're feeling it from their tenants, whether they're the residential tenants, they're feeling it from the commercial, and there's nothing to step in and help them right now. So I'm really fearful for the landlords just as much as any tenant who's out of work or anybody else who can't find work. I think that both are going to have a dramatic impact. And what that's going to do to our economy, I'm scared to see.
But you watch the news, they say, oh, there's a housing boom. People are still buying houses. They make it seem like there's all these people that are working remote and they're leaving the big cities and going to these other places and buying homes. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I don't know anybody that's bought a home during the pandemic.
So you are seeing people who are buying homes because our rates are really low right now. Affordability is really high. But it's kind of a case of the rich getting richer. If you're a corporate employee and you have a job that could work remote, you're working in a professional setting, and you're still working, but the rate affordability is a lot higher. Maybe you want to go and do another investment. Maybe you want to buy another property. Maybe you want to upgrade. People who are already suffering, who can't pay rent, there's no hope of them buying at this point. You can't pay your rent. You're going to get evicted. It's going to hit your credit. It's just downhill from there. So I think with the artificially low rates, we are seeing some activity. And also a lot of people are not trying to move around too much right now during COVID time. So you're seeing lower inventory. A lot of people aren't putting their house for sale. So the few houses that are up for sale and with the higher affordability, it's pushing some prices up. But I wouldn't say that we're seeing massive amounts of movement. That would be something a little artificial. It's just the perfect storm to kind of rise the prices of the properties that are out there right now.
Do you think this is going to have a worse impact in 2008? Because, we had a housing crisis, 2020, 12 years ago.
We did. So we're seeing numbers where, rivaling or going higher than 2008 in the prices of the properties because of that low inventory and high affordability. But at the same time, we're only seeing it in limited patches. So I think that what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot of problems. You're going to see a lot of foreclosures again because of this memorandum, this deferring of mortgages. You're going to see that impact the market. You're going to see lending's a little harder because it's concentrated in people who have a little bit higher wealth right now. You won't have the situation where I remember we sold a house to a couple, and they both were bartenders. You know, they worked simple jobs. They were bartenders. They saved up their money. They kind of came together. They showed their income. They were able to get the loan. We were able to get them a condo. That's gone. I mean, that industry's hit so hard. You know, restaurants, bartending. We're going to see a lot of people who are just first-time home buyers trying to start a family. They're not going to be able to. You're going to see a lot of foreclosures. I think to sort this out, if everything continues the same way it's going right now, it's going to be a massive mess. I think we're in a situation where we don't know what's going on. We never had a pandemic. We never had a situation where rates were dramatically low, inventory was gone, massive amounts of more foreclosures about to happen. It's like everything's just kind of happening at once. Now, if the government wants to step in and kind of make a change or do something dramatic to fix it, that's a possibility. We might see this sort itself out. But if you just leave the market to itself, if I had to make a prediction, I think you're going to see a lot of foreclosures. I think you're going to see a lot of commercial spaces. They're going to really go underwater for a while. I think that you're going to see less construction because there's not going to be a lot of first-time home buyers. A lot of people are just going to be recovering from this. Their savings are probably going to be a little lower because, you know, they were out of work. There's other situations like that. And I think it's going to make the real estate market very stagnant in the near future. So that's where I think it's going right now.
Do you think if somebody were to ask you, like, well, hey, you know, is it a good time to buy? Or because even though this is a bad situation for some people with the credit, I mean, with the capital, they're able to do well. And people look at them like it's a bad thing. But, you know, you can't just because I have the means to capitalize on this opportunity, I should.
I definitely agree with that. I think basically because of the affordability in the lending market, it's a good time to buy. You're getting interest rates at 3 or lower. And if you do the math, I mean, I had a friend I was talking to the other way. He said it's practically free money. I mean, we never seen interest rates this low before. Before, a good interest rate would have been 5%. You're getting to the point where it's 3 and lower. Your affordability spikes up dramatically. Even if you're holding that property for the 30 years, like you do the mortgage, you're going to have such a low rate. I mean, it does make sense if you can afford it. I know a lot of people right now, especially customers of ours, who are taking advantage of that. A lot of them are seeing that they had the funds, they were saving all this time, and now it's an opportunity because of the affordability. They're buying houses, they're buying multifamily houses. Yes, they can't rent right now, but they're anticipating that when things come back, maybe they can start finding renters and there's some more movement. So I think that absolutely. I mean, me personally, I'm a buyer right now in this market. If I see any good deals, I'm definitely interested.
Right. And you got to be, you know, financially able to do this. Do you think it's going to affect future generations? You know, because like, you know, the baby boomers, they had it to where, you know, when the war was over, the government gave them cheap loans and they got all these houses, but it doesn't seem like they're doing anything for us.
No, I would say that millennial generation is like the hardest hit generation ever. Very few of them are homeowners. They're starting families and everything a lot later. I think that currently what's going on hit them really hard. And I can't see this situation helping them at all. I think that in particular, when you look at the housing market and the current rises we have because of that low inventory and the pricing going up, when you look at the situation where this is going to be harder to rent, I think that it's going to displace a lot of people in that millennial and younger generation. It's going to be quite messy for them. I think once all those mortgages start to default because of what's going on, the banks are going to tighten up their lending. So those same DTI ratios we're talking about, that can all change. And if it changes for up to the higher end, with the generation who has so much debt from student loans, cars, everything, I can't see how that's going to help them. So I definitely think that these low interest rates are helping the people who are wealthier, which are usually the older people. Most of our customers right now are people who are older. They already have the financing. They have retirement plans. They're ready to move to their final home, or they're moving to a larger place. That's where we really see the movement, not from new buyers.
Mm. What would you say to somebody who, real estate's a hot topic to make money and a lot of people are trying to get into it? What would you tell somebody who's trying to get into real estate, buy their first investment property?
So I'm a big believer in the numbers. Whenever I'm looking at an investment property, I'm calculating something we call the cap rate, which is the capitalization rate. Kind of just calculates what's your rate of return. And you always want to kind of plan out for what's your worst case scenario, especially if you're renting. Imagine if you just bought a rental property right now and you have a situation where you may have, just for example, 8 tenants. Half of them might not be paying because of what's going on right now. Can you really plan out for a situation like that as well? So you want to look at your capitalization rate. You want to look at your downside risk, and then base your investment off of that. A lot of people think, and a lot of new investors think, whenever I talk to them, that as soon as you get into a real estate investment, you're set. You're instantly going to be rich because everybody has real estate is rich, but it's not like that. It's just as much losers as there are winners in real estate. Keep your numbers tight, just like any other business. Have a clear understanding what your expense is going to be by managing, selling, flipping, whatever you're doing with that property, and then stick to that budget. Account for any kind of downside turns or any risks, and then from there, usually you can increase your chances of making a good return.
So it's possible, like I said, for somebody to have a regular job and invest. Now you probably can't, start with 100 family multi-unit, but you want to start somewhere. But the thing is, like I said, getting the capital, getting yourself in, getting the loan, because a lot of people just don't know. You don't need all, you don't have to buy a house cash. You just put the money down.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where a lot of people lose, and like a lot of people don't take advantage of real estate because, you think about the last year, you got you're getting $1,400 now, you got $600 plus your income tax. That might be $5,000.
Correct.
And you save another $5,000. That's $10,000, and you can go take that and invest with something. You can do something with $10,000.
Yeah, like we were saying, if you're buying a house, whether it's multifamily or anything 4 and below is considered a residential home. We were saying you can put as low as 5% down. Now, I'm just going to do a general number because I know your audience is all over America. Let's say that home is $200,000, and you're putting 5% down. 5% of $200,000 is only $10,000, as you said. You do want to have a little bit of money for the closing costs and other things, but that can all be worked out in the loan. You have things such as buyer's concessions and other various tools that can kind of help you finance that. So it is very possible to do that purchase with the $10,000. Now, the only thing I want to say is have an idea of how much it's going to cost you to manage that property, make payments, and always have some money planned for the downturn.
They say have some money for a downturn, because this would be that downturn.
This would be that downturn. Unexpected. I could personally talk about a customer I knew. We got him a 4-family home, and we helped him rent out the places and everything. And he was really tight with the budget was really tight. He didn't really have a lot of wiggle room. And in particular, one of those tenants during this pandemic stopped paying. The courts closed. Of course, he couldn't evict the tenant. And just that one tenant not paying made it so tight for him to pay his mortgage that he's looking now to sell that property. He didn't quite plan out for that downturn. His budget didn't have the flexibility. Always plan for that downturn, because it could be our pandemic now. Next time it could be something else with the housing market or some other kind of economic crash, what can cause you just paying from tenants not paying, or it could be that repair you have to make because of some kind of issue was not covered by insurance. It could be anything. So you always want to be cautious with whenever you're doing real estate investments, and always plan out for that downturn.
Nice. Before we go, let me ask you, has COVID helped or hurt your business?
So I think naturally at first everybody would know that it had a big impact, especially early on when we had to shut down. It pretty much had business was non-existent. Anything that wasn't essential wasn't open. So all of my agents, all of our prospective customers, they were pretty much locked in and hunkered down like everybody else. In particular, our New York market, we started to see it come back first with the sales. We saw some movement on the sales end because of the low rates as we were talking about earlier. And now we're starting to see it open up with people coming back into the city. They're anticipating that there's going to be some movement again. They're anticipating on possibly schools or their job opening back. And you're starting to see people move back in. I know there was a big talk about the great exodus from the big cities, that everybody wants to go out to the rural areas. But just speaking of human nature, it's hard to go to a rural area if you were in the city and you had all the bars, all the access. So we're starting to see people come back. Right now, we're kind of picking back up pace. We're starting to see a lot of movement. We're getting busy. I won't say that it was pre-pandemic levels as yet, but I'm anticipating a good rise in our real estate market, especially in the rental end. We think that that's going to come back pretty heavy. A lot of people are unfortunately trying to move before they have to pay the rental money back. So they're looking for opportunities to kind of quickly move and just, I guess, replace themselves from what they owe from the previous landlord. So we're starting to see movements like that too.
Okay. Where can they find you at, sir?
So we do have a website. We are newprospectiverealty.com. You can also email us and has all our contact information there. We provide services for people who are looking to rent, buy, sell. If you're looking to do commercial rentals or space. And also at the same time, if you want to reach out to us for a consultation, we do property management as well. So we're a full service brokerage firm that can provide you any of your needs. So the best way to reach out to us is newprospectiverealty.com.
All right. You heard of newprospectiverealty.com. I want to thank you, Mr. Edan, for coming on today.
Appreciate it.
I thank the audience for tuning in and listening. And once again, if you have questions, you want to get your credit in order so you can get your property, you go to www.stressmoneyless.com. You can learn how to manage your credit, create a budget, and save more money. There's consultation and there's courses. This has been the Cheap Champ Podcast, sponsored by Cheap Not Broke. I'm your host, Malcolm Hall. And until next time, we will see you later.